Rev up your engine! Today we got a 2012 Nissan pickup. Now for the owner, it's been a fantastically good vehicle because unfortunately his grandfather died and he got it for nothing, nada, $0. But if you're gonna buy a used pickup truck and you price out what a used Toyota Tacoma costs, you might go run into one of these Nissan Frontiers. This particular one is fully loaded. It's a 4x4. It has back seats. Well, if you have extremely small people, it has back seats in it. But under the hood is venerable 4-liter V6 that Nissan's been making for years. And if you look at this one, this isn't the old crappy ones with rubber timing belts. It's got a timing chain. Now granted, it's got a goofy design where that timing chain drives the water pump, just like in those Ford engines. And if the water pump goes, it can destroy your engine because then the pistons will hit the valves and water gets in the oil, ruins the engine. So it's kind of a squirrely design, but Nissan did that for a while. The engine itself is pretty bulletproof. But speaking of cooling systems, he had a problem with this car, and it's a good lesson for everybody. The engine kept overheating. He took it to the dealer. They ended up putting thermostat and some stuff on it, and the car was still overheating. Well, he thought the Nissan dudes knew what they were doing, so then he replaced the radiator himself, because you can get aftermarket radiators cheaply enough that work perfectly fine. Here's what the problem ended up being. The problem was the idiots at the Nissan dealer put the wrong thermostat in. And you might think, how could they make a car overheat? Well, back in the day when I was a young mechanic, car radiators had as many as 4 core radiators in them. So the radiator cooling had 4 separate cores, a lot of space to cool. So if you have a car back in the day that was overheating, you could take the thermostat out and run it and it would work fine because all those cores would cool it no matter what. But when you take the modern thin aluminum and plastic radiators, they work under a higher pressure and they have much less surface area. So actually, the water has to stay inside the radiator a lot longer than in an old-fashioned radiator that had more surface area. Modern cars are made to run with a thermostat. If you get too much flow, say you take the thermostat out, or in their case, put the wrong one in, it opens up too early, then you get too much flow to the radiator and the coolant goes through the radiator so fast that the skinny little stinking modern plastic and aluminum radiator doesn't have enough time to dissipate enough heat and the car will run too hot. Like I say, in the old days, there were so many rows, it didn't matter how fast it went through. It was dissipating heat so fast it didn't matter, but these are made for a slower flow. And if you increase the flow, they can overheat. So always, if you get one of these, do like he did. Not only get the same thermostat, let's say it was a 192-degree thermostat, make sure you get a 192, and get the factory one. Don't buy one of these Chinese ones or discount auto parts stores, because I've seen those things fail from the get-go or break soon after, or since they're in China and they don't really test them, they open at the wrong temperature. They may say 190, maybe they open at 170. So learn from other people's mistakes. Now the truck itself, he also has a 2.5-inch lift, which isn't too bad, and it hasn't messed anything up. He also put a Magnaflow exhaust on. It's got a nice sound. Rev it up a little. And what did that prove? That proves that you can get a nice sounding truck without dual exhaust. This is a single exhaust, it's got enough flow, it sounds great. Realize the only thing you care in an exhaust system is the size of the exhaust system. The bigger it is, the faster it's going to flow. You don't necessarily need 2 to make it flow right. Take racing motorcycles, right? When I was a kid, everybody had dual exhaust. Now, no, they got collector pipes, 4 into 1. They're more efficient. You don't need 2 of them. You just need a lot of big holes for it to go through. Now, it's got the V6 engine. The 4-cylinder engines are perfectly fine if you're just driving around. If you're going to pull stuff like he does, he's got an old vet that he pulls around with it, you got to get the V6 engine. And hilariously enough, he got it free from his grandfather. The Nissan dealer, they offered him 25 grand for it as it stands now. So he got it for nothing, but he likes the truck, and I don't blame him. It can have a long lifespan. I've seen some of these things that had a couple 100,000, and they were still running decently. Now, I know a lot of people can say, oh, it's a Nissan. It's got a horrible transmission. It's an automatic transmission. But what you got to understand is the transmission goes down to the back wheels. That is a classic longitudinal transmission. And Nissan actually makes very good longitudinal transmissions. Unfortunately, most of their cars are front-wheel drive Jatcos, which are pieces of crap. But their truck transmissions, it's a completely different ball game. They do not have that many problems with them. He says that sometimes it shifts a little bit off, but I mean, hey, he abuses the thing too, drives like a maniac, and it's still going down the road perfectly fine, as we'll see. Now it's nice and high up in the air, makes a good sound. We're on the bumpy roads, and it's a high up truck. It's going to bump around a lot, but hey, it rides decently. People drive like maniacs around here. They don't look. And here we go. Okay, let's step on it. It's got a good V6 engine. It goes. Of course, it uses gas too, but it's a four-wheel drive pickup truck. He probably gets about 14, 15 miles a gallon, generally driving it around town. Might push it up to 17 on the highway, but he wants to pull stuff, so he needs the big engine. Okay, so it is a truck, obviously. It rides like a truck, but they can run a long time. And like I said, if you're looking for a good used truck, try buying a used Toyota truck. I've seen some of them go when they're 12 years old for more than they originally cost. There's a lot of Frontiers out there. There's nothing wrong with them. You do have to understand, what do you want? If you're just driving, get a 4-cylinder. They're decent. They can last quite some time. But if, like him, you're going to tow stuff, carry stuff, you want to go fast, especially if you want to go off-road, you got to get the V6. The 4s, they just don't have enough power off-road. You really got to get the V6. And they're well-made engines. They've been making them for a long time, and they're pretty bulletproof if you take care of them. He changes his oil every 5,000 miles. He changes his fluids once a year. He takes care of it. There's no saying how long this thing can last. So now you learned a good lesson. Don't put the wrong thermostat in your car. Well, he didn't, the dealership did, right? And of course, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Somebody gives you a truck, take it, you know? On the other hand, if you gotta buy one, there's nothing wrong with buying a used Nissan Frontier. You can get a good price on one. They're decently made trucks. There's nothing horrendous about them. Just because they have Jatco transmissions, like I said, they're the longitudinal ones. They really don't have problems. They got decent sized beds on them. There's nothing wrong with getting a Nissan Frontier at the right price. With today's market, hey, you might find a $10,000, $20,000 difference between a Frontier and a Toyota pickup truck. These last quite a bit of time too, and the money you're going to save, you might think, well, it's the next best thing to get, and I can find one at a decent price. Not a bad idea to get one of these. And here's some bonus questions and answers. And 2028 says, I got a 2021 Toyota Highlander. I have a brake pad issue. October, he felt shaking, and they said to resurface instead of replacing the brake pads. And this time they said, we have to pay because they're blaming it on he doesn't drive the car right. I don't feel this is fair from the Toyota dealer. What do you think? Throughout my life, dealerships aren't the most honest places in the world. And one, the thing isn't very old. If the brake pads wore out and then they worked on them and then they had to resurface it again later, they are showing that they are not very honest mechanics. One, they're not standing behind their work. Two, they resurfaced your rotors. No one in their right mind today who's a good mechanic would resurface rotors honestly for anyone. And here's why. When I was a young mechanic, cast iron rotors, they were real thick, you could resurface them. Today, they make them much thinner, less weight, cheaper to manufacture. Once they warp, you hit the brakes and the steering wheel shakes, you replace them. You do not resurface them because you have thin rotors, right? Once they've already warped, they're warped. You turn them on a lathe and resurface them, make them flat again. Now they're even thinner. Guess what? They will warp even faster, and as you found, in a few months, they warped again. And then they're not standing behind it. One, they were scumbags in the first place. They should have replaced the rotors. They did that work free. They should have replaced them under warranty, but you know how it goes with warranty work. They never want to replace anything free, so they'll do the cheapest job. Oh, we'll resurface them. No real mechanic these days will resurface rotors on a vehicle because they know they're going to warp even faster the second time because they're thinner. And they're being scumbags saying, well, now you have to pay for it. It's your husband's fault, the way he drives, you know. No, it's their work. They did shoddy work. They should have replaced the rotors, and they didn't. I would demand new rotors for you, and it is a Toyota. Contact the Japanese. They care. The American dealerships, they don't care. They're Americans out to make money that own the dealerships. They just have a contract with Toyota to be one of their dealerships. Contact Toyota directly, and I guarantee you they'll give you free rotors and brakes. The Japanese care about their products. Americans that run the places that sell them, not so much. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.